Hello, gorgeous. I am back today, and today we're talking about boundaries. Why some women have boundaries and others don't. So, I'm trying to make shorter videos of my longer live streams that I've done in the past, and this is definitely one topic that I've talked about a ton, only because I used to suffer from not having any boundaries and then blaming other people for not upholding my boundaries. So, this is one that's taken me, oh my God, decades to learn and perfect in my own life. And it is a topic that I'm really passionate about because a lot of people seem to think that if you're a spiritual being, then you don't need boundaries, or like boundaries are unspiritual or boundaries are unloving. But the truth is that in order to be a spiritual being, in order to be a loving being, you definitely need boundaries, right? Because remember that there is a animal side to us and a spiritual, like spirit side to us. And we need to, in order to have this life experience on this planet, be mindful and cultivate both of those sides to have a full rounded experience, right? Think of it this way: if you were just a spiritual being, you'd be sitting somewhere in the mountains, like being your spiritual self, right? You wouldn't really be having a human experience. You're here to have a human experience, and therefore you need to be mindful of both of these things. Now, in my work, I teach these 4 stages: basic babe, self-aware Barbie, $1,000,000 babe, and high-end divinity. And there's different expressions of how boundaries or lack of boundaries show up in these 4 stages. So when you are a basic babe, when you're in the basic babe stage, boundaries are going to be something that you have no clue about, right? You're also breaking other people's boundaries and people are breaking your boundaries. You almost show up as very codependent and like childlike in relationships, whether it's between you and your mother or you and your friends or you and your romantic partner. There's always this sense of like, mama, hold me kind of a vibe. And so you think that other people are not they're breaking your boundaries, but the reason is because you don't have any boundaries to begin with, right? You don't have boundaries, and so everyone can just kind of merge with your energy and you merge with other people's energy. So because you don't have any, there's nothing to break. And so when you get out of that stage of blaming other people, I was a self-aware Barbie for most of my life, but when it came to boundaries, I turned into a basic babe real quick. I was like the queen of blaming other people. My mindset was, well, they should just know, right? Like they should, like any decent person or any person with common sense would just know that they shouldn't be breaking my boundaries. But I didn't have any boundaries to begin with, so of course they don't know. There's no way for them to know, right? Now, when you are in the self-aware Barbie mode, and remember there's always ranges. You could be 80% self-aware Barbie and 20% basic babe. It's not like an on-off switch. It's almost like a continuum or a dial, okay? So when you're in self-aware Barbie, you often are very closed off and very much like having boundaries, but they are more like dividing, separating boundaries than like energetic boundaries. So it can come across as like, this is mine and that's yours. You don't step over this line. I don't step over that line. It can be very rigid and it can feel very transactional in relationships. Now, also in self-aware Barbie, sometimes we can be, without realizing it, breaking other people's boundaries by controlling them or wanting a certain type of experience for them or like stepping in and doing things for them. But remember that trying to rob someone of the experience that they're supposed to have, even if that means they're gonna struggle a little bit, is also breaking other people's boundaries, okay? So always be mindful that boundaries go twofold. People can break yours, but you can unintentionally be breaking theirs as well, okay? So when it comes to the $1,000,000 babe, this is when our true divinity and our healthy divine feminine and healthy divine masculine both activate in us. Now, here's where you start differentiating a lot between men and women. The way that the masculine has evolved through just our evolutionary history, they're pretty like cut throat when it comes to like, this is my boundaries. They're very clear in communicating them oftentimes. They have a certain hierarchy and they respect it. They have just evolved to appreciate and respect hierarchy in a different way that women have, because we're gatherers, they're hunters. It's a little bit different for men and women. For women, we don't always have to go and communicate our boundaries. Our energy and what we are available for will be the biggest deciding factor of whether you have boundaries or you don't have boundaries. Now, because we've been very much masculinized through our society and conditioning, the masculine way is very much preferred for production. If you want to be a productive member of society, you want to be good at school, you want to have a good job, you want to like produce results, then of course the masculine way is the way to go, and that's the way that we've been taught. So we think that, I often hear this, okay, so I'm going to step back and give you a real life example. When I would complain to people about people breaking my boundaries when really I just didn't have any, the advice I would get from people would be, well, sit down and like have a talk with them, right? Like sit down and like let them know. And the assumption is that I'm going to sit down and we're going to say, well, you are breaking my boundaries. And the other person's going to say, oh my, I didn't know I was breaking your boundaries. From now on, I'm not going to break your boundaries. I'm so sorry for breaking your boundaries. And I know I'm like being silly here, but that's literally how people imagined and told me how it would be, right? However, when I would sit down with people and discuss about these imaginary boundaries, which I didn't have, what the response I would get would be anger, crying, throwing a scene, lashing out. Like it never went how they said it was going to go, right? It wasn't like, oh my, I'm so sorry, I'm breaking your boundaries, I just didn't know. That's not how it happened. And so it never worked for me. Then the idea that I got was, these people that were supposedly breaking my boundaries, I realized they were actually very good at upholding boundaries themselves. Meaning I was not able to break any of their boundaries, right? They just had really great boundaries. And so instead of being annoyed by them, I started watching them. I started watching their behavior. I started mimicking actually some of the behaviors that they were doing towards me to see how they would respond. And their response was very different than mine. Very different. They did not communicate their boundaries with me ever, and yet they had boundaries and were able to uphold these boundaries in this really amazing way that really changed my life, okay? And here's what it was. They had energetic boundaries. They didn't necessarily have physical boundaries. They could still come and show up as a very loving being, but they had this energetic almost protection around them. So let me give you an example. I've shared this in my longer live streams, but I think it's worth repeating here. Let's say that I had a whole day of like coaching calls planned and all the stuff I had to do. And a relative or a family friend or someone just dropped by unannounced, and I would open the door and be super annoyed, obviously, because I have all this stuff to do. And I would invite them in, make them tea, all the things. And before I would know it, they would eat up 4 or 5 hours of my time. And I would be super like annoyed of that, because now I have to like cancel calls or like juggle all this other stuff that I had on my schedule. And then I would be super annoyed. And when this person would leave, I would like, complain about it to my husband or tell my best friend and everything. To me, it seemed like they were doing something wrong. They were breaking my boundaries. But if you really look at this real life example, I didn't have any boundaries. What boundaries were they breaking? They showed up, I opened the door, I invited them in, I made them tea, I made them feel welcome, right? I didn't have any boundaries. So what I did then is I stopped by unannounced, which took a lot of courage on my part because I just don't do that kind of stuff. And I just happened to stop by at this person's house. Guess what they did? They did not open the door. Guess who has boundaries and guess who doesn't? Okay, they did not open the door. They were inside their house. I could hear them. They did not open the door. I even texted them saying, hey, I'm outside. No response, okay? Couple hours later, they responded saying, hey, was busy. To me, that was a freaking game changer. It changed everything for me, okay? Because I started seeing what boundaries actually look like in action. Look at it this way. I opened the door, invited them in, made them tea, did all those things, but I wasn't a very loving person, right? I was kind of resentful. I was kind of upset internally. They kind of ruined my schedule for the day. I was complaining about it to my husband, which actually was ruining our relationship, right? It's ruining the energy of the moment. So I'm not a very loving person in that moment. Look at them. They didn't open the door. They continued doing what they needed to be doing. And they remained a very loving person. They texted me later saying, hey, I was busy. Okay, that's boundaries. Now, a lot of women think, well, if I don't say anything, they're gonna continue on the behavior. Well, not really. Think of it this way. If that person didn't say anything, I'm not gonna continue the behavior. Am I gonna keep showing up to someone's house unannounced when they don't open the door for the 5th time? Of course not. Okay? Of course not. Now, this person could have opened the door and said, well, you should really call me and let me know that you're gonna show up. But that's like, it's awkward first and foremost. And what if I did what some of these people did and started crying and saying, well, I didn't know, and you're being very unloving and blah, 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 right? It's creating drama in your life. It's creating a scene. It's gonna be awkward with this person when simply you not opening the door resolves the problem. So this is a big myth that if you don't say anything, then the behavior will continue. No, okay? So let's say that you have someone in your life that gives you unsolicited advice and it's very pushy, okay? Every time you get on the phone call with them, because let's say this is a relative, and the minute they start giving you unsolicited advice and you excuse yourself and say you've got to run and hang up the phone, first of all, if they continue doing it, you hung up the phone, you're not listening anymore, so it doesn't bother you anymore. And honestly, how many times until they figure it out, right? They just know that you're not energetically available for that, right? A third alternative is for you to say, hey, this doesn't work for me. I don't like it when you give unsolicited advice. But you and I both know that 99% of the time, the people that we're actually dealing with are not the type of people that are just gonna be like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Like most of the time, these people are very dramatic. They create a scene. They do it even more. They guilt trip you and you're back to square one. So having energetic boundaries is the #1 game changer. Excuse yourself and get out of that situation. Okay, remove your attention. I can't tell you how many areas of life this has changed for me. It's worked with my parenting, it's worked in my marriage, it's worked in my friendships, it's worked with my business relationships. I remove my attention and I'm no longer available for that thing. Whether that means I walk away, I excuse myself, I don't open the door, I don't take the call. Like I do the things that I need to do to maintain the boundary that is my responsibility. And then other people figure it out. And even if they don't, it doesn't matter because I'm not available for it. So they could not, maybe they don't figure it out, but I'm not there to witness it. So did the fall even, drop, whatever that saying is, right? So this is how you retrain people on your boundaries, by actually having some first and foremost. That's the #1 key step that I've learned. Have boundaries, don't just complain about them. And then uphold them yourself. They are all energetic. What you're not available for, someone can't enforce on you. You're just not available for it, okay? I had, when I was in my early 20s, before I started real estate, I used to have 9-to-5 jobs. And I had there was this really great company that I was working for. I was advancing every 3 months. I was getting a promotion. Like I loved working at this company. I worked there, I believe, like 2 years. And then my boss had this other boss come, and he was transferred from a different department. And this guy was a complete piece of work. Like he was just awful. And he was an older man and just nasty. And he would make all the admins and the staff members like literally cry, okay, I remember standing there one day and he was like going off on us, and one of my closest friends at my work bestie at the time, broke down and just started crying. I stood there, looked at him and said, I quit. My boss, my actual boss, begged me to stay, kept calling me days after days, like trying to get me to come back. I quit on that spot and I walked away and I never came back. In fact, I never went back to corporate, okay? That is a boundary. I didn't have a talk with them like all the other girls had. I didn't break down and start crying. I didn't do any of those like things that obviously weren't working. I just upheld my boundaries. So obviously I knew how to do this in a work environment, but when it came to my personal life, it took me a long time to enforce these. So remove your energy, remove your presence, remove your attention from the situation, and that is you actually having a boundary, regardless of what any of the masculine paradigms say about like sitting people down and having a talk with them. Good luck with that. You know, I'm sure it'll work in like 2% of the cases, but most people are not like healthy inner worked people that are going to be like, I apologize. And you know, that's not how it's worked out in my life. Doing it the way I'm teaching you has been a complete game changer. And I personally believe this is a more feminine way. It's more tactful. And it is just more classy. You just do what you need to do. You remove yourself from the situation. You don't answer the phone. You don't open the door. You're not available for the date. Like you're just not co-signing any of that nonsense behavior. Okay. Now, before I let you go, I've got 2 special announcements. First of all, for the next 24 hours, if you're on my email list, you already knew this was going on for 48 hours. Now we've got 24 hours left. The Selfaware Activated Barbie Bundle is on a huge flash sale. This is my course that took me 12 months to develop. It took a whole year to make this course because there's 12 different level up courses inside of this bundle and then some bonuses as well. So in here I cover high value communication skills. I cover healthy eating skills. All the skills that actually help me cure my autoimmune disease and my my rheumatoid arthritis, all of that's in there. I share my exact workout routine, which I still follow after 7-8 years. I share the 90-day relationship rehab is in there. My husband made a whole course in there about how we invest our money and how we reach financial independence. So we reached financial independence before I even started this business and you guys know we were featured on the Dave Ramsey show. So that's something that we did as part of the FIRE community. That's all in there. I also have spiritual work in there. I have my parenting course in there. I'm trying to think what else. Wardrobe, how I create a masculine container so I can be feminine in how I dress. All of the 12 feminine containers of my life are in there because, the masculine containers in a feminine way. We need the divine masculine containers in our life so that we can be feminine, right? There is no river without the riverbed. So all of that is in there. I also have bonus courses in there. I mean, this is a lot of value. You can do this course multiple ways. You can buy it and you can binge watch it through, which I know a lot of people do. I won't judge, especially if you're a Selfaware Barbie. Or you can take it and you can do 1 month at a time, just like it's designed. It's designed so that you do one course every month, automate it, and then move on to the next one. But again, if one course takes you 3 months, that's okay too. There is no right and wrong, okay? So why am I doing a course on the activated Selfaware Barbie? Because the truth is we all need masculine energy in our life, right? If you don't have masculine energy, you don't have a workout routine, okay? You don't have a strategy for building your wardrobe. You don't have like those containers. So the Selfaware Barbie in the unhealthy self is like running on masculine energy unintentionally, okay? But the activated Selfaware Barbie is something where you consciously use your own divine masculine energy to create these systems and structures in your life so that things are automated and then you can remain in your feminine for the rest of the time. Okay, so that's why I call this the activated Selfaware Barbie. We're not in fight or flight. We're being very intentional when we're using our divine masculine energy in this way. So if you want to take advantage of this course right now, it's a huge flash sale. It's linked in the description box for you. The second announcement is we have sold out about 65-70% of the seats for the Rebirth 2023 in-person New Year intensive. I have this intensive every year in Houston, Texas. This is our 5th annual. It is amazing every year. It is more and more fabulous. And this year I'm doing it in January. Well, every year I do it in January, but it's January 16th. And it's the actual intensive is 1 full day, but the day before we always have some kind of a party or something, a get together, a dinner, something fabulous, which is included in the price so that we can all hang out and have some kind of an amazing experience together. Okay, so both of those are linked in the description box for you. If you're new to my work and you're not sure where to begin, I highly recommend downloading my free playbook called the Container Playbook. You get that absolutely free. And the first course that I recommend everyone start with is the Basic Babe Bundle, okay? If you're unsure, that is like the #1 place that I believe everyone could get so much value starting there. All right, babe, I love you. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.